Well, hello there. It's been a while since we had a chat. Welcome back to the LAB Grotto, although it's not super festive at the moment because I'm actually only in Birmingham for a few days before I go to my parents, fingers crossed if I don't come down with the new variant, and then I'm off back to Dubai, also all being well. So we're in that stressful period where I'm desperately hoping my PCR tests are going to be clear. So maybe I'll decorate the house if they're not, because I'm going to be home all the time. Anyway, enough about that. I hope you guys are well. It has been a little while since I sat in this chair and had a chat with you. In fact, the last video I posted was just after I quit my job, which was some time ago, and I promised you a video talking about that in more detail, but at the time was not the right time to give you that video because emotions were running super high. I was super burnt out at that point and I wasn't in the right headspace to give you a reasoned set of answers. So now that we're at the end of the year and we're approaching a new year, it seemed like a really good time to distill my thoughts on it with you. So firstly, this is a really personal journey and I wouldn't want you to go away from this video thinking that anything that I have thought or done or said should necessarily apply to you. Everyone's situation is different. I'm just here to tell you some things that went through my mind at the point of quitting that might help you if you've also thought about those things or thought about taking your career in a different direction. Okay, so there were a lot of things which led up to me handing in my notice that had been in play for several years, in fact, before I ultimately took the plunge. And I may well go into some of those things at other points in other videos, but today I'm going to talk mainly about the catalyst which really led to me making the decision at that particular moment and some things I learned from that process and have learned since that process. So I posted on Instagram not too long ago about this idea of redefining success, which was critical at the point where I quit my job, because I've been working at IM for nearly 10 years at the point where I quit my job, or I'd secured my training contract nearly 10 years before. And when I applied for that job, I was in my early 20s and had an idea of what I wanted my life to look like. I'd just come out of uni, I'd worked in Ibiza, I'd had a kind of a wild life, and I was like, right, now it's time to knuckle down. I want to be partner, I want to work really hard, hit astronomical targets. This is what I want to do with my life. And I put my blood, sweat and tears into securing that job, as you will know from previous videos and basically what I've built my entire brand on. But that was absolutely my idea of success. And once I got over that hurdle, I think as I progressed through my job and I discovered other things about myself and the world, I began to change that definition slightly. I think founding LAB was instrumental because I really kind of found what I think of as my purpose. And that's not necessarily just sitting in front of a camera talking to you about securing training contracts, but it's connecting with you on all of my different platforms, hearing about your journeys, nurturing you as much as I can and giving something back from what I've learned about the world. And I think that became so important to me, more so than it had ever been before. I also began to kind of discover my skill set, which I'd never really done before. I think the process of traditional education, you go through school, which I didn't really do until later, but then you go straight onto uni and then you get straight into a job and you never really have time to explore anything else other than what you're fed by your educator. And you don't really have that space and time to explore what you're good at and what you enjoy. And I think when I discovered LAB, I really kind of discovered the things that I felt I was good at and the things that I really enjoyed. And the more I did that, the more I kind of realised that there was a lot about my job that perhaps I didn't gel so well with, that didn't really play to my strengths. And I dedicated a lot of time to trying to improve those things. I probably spent more time investing in trying to improve weaknesses than I did on doing things that I was actually strong in. And in hindsight, I now completely reject that narrative. People who've gone on to be really successful in life often have, or almost always have, a certain set of unique skills which go really well together that they're really good at. And actually, that's what makes people stand out and that's what makes people successful. In trying to strengthen a weakness, you actually often weaken a strength, and you can dilute what you're really, really good at by trying to improve things that you're not good at. And for me, in the long term, that wasn't the goal. And actually, for most successful people, they really work on becoming super exceptional at those things that they're already really, really good at. And that's really where I wanted to focus my energy, rather than kind of taking away from the things that I was good at by really investing in trying to improve things that I wasn't so good at. I also looked at the ladder that I was climbing, and I looked at the people at the top of that ladder and slowly realised that I didn't really want to be them. And that is no disrespect to them at all. But when I looked at the kind of directors and senior partners, and I looked at the life they were living, that isn't the life that I wanted to live. I'm definitely a work to live person and not a live to work person. You know, my ideal has always been to work hard so that I can then enjoy my life. And actually, I looked at some of these partners in their 50s and 60s who were still working 50 to 60-hour weeks, and that was absolutely not the dream for me. So I already looked at that and thought, I'm not sure if this is the right thing for me. If you're climbing this ladder and the destination at the top is not actually where you want to get to, that's a strong indication that you're climbing the wrong ladder. But I contradict that thought process by saying that you don't have to follow in the footsteps of anybody else. You can carve entirely your own path, particularly if you're looking at partners in your firm who are like 50 to 60 years old. They lived in a very different world to you. They grew up in a very different world, and your potential life as a partner in 20 years probably won't look like their life. So it's not necessarily a dead cert that just because the people who are currently above you live a certain way that you have to live that way. You can carve your own path. But when I thought about the path that I wanted to carve, I struggled to see how it could align with staying in that job. The path that I wanted to carve really involved traveling, it involved working with lots of different people in lots of different types of role with lots of different businesses. And I couldn't ever see how that could align with working with IM because of the nature of the job. Even if I changed my job role slightly or moved things around, I really struggled to see how all of the things I wanted to do were compatible with staying there. And I was aware of all of these things, but I kind of thought I would stay there and ride it out until I found the next thing. And a few opportunities did come along whilst I was still working there, but I didn't think any of those were the right thing, and I don't regret any of those decisions not to take those opportunities. Whilst I was working all of these hours, A, it was taking time away from the things that I really wanted to do, and B, it was preventing me from finding the next thing. This kind of culminated in a quote actually that I heard after I quit my job, but it really kind of sums it up. And it said, "The longer you entertain what isn't for you, the longer you put off what is for you." And that, I think, was the feeling which really overcame me in the end, was that I know that this is not right for me. And although I don't know exactly what the next thing is or exactly what's right for me, I know that this isn't it. And I have to give myself the opportunity to find what is it, because I'm not going to do it whilst I'm doing this. And I think what I actually discovered once I took the plunge and handed in my notice, that the next thing was already there. I just hadn't really noticed it. And the next thing was all of these inquiries for work, which had been coming into my inbox or various inboxes across various social platforms, which I had just as a gut reaction said no to, because you can't take on those sorts of things when you work for a big company. Any one of you who is a junior lawyer will know that, you know, you do work for that company and that's it. So I've been rejecting all of these things without even thinking about it. And then suddenly I quit my job and I realised that actually all of these bits of work were consultancy. That's what it was. And I could do that now because I didn't work for another company. I was freelance. And all of a sudden I could pick up all of these jobs, which I could do in my own time, entirely in my own way, and create my own life around the work, which is much more the design that I wanted for my life. Whilst I'm in the business of rejecting narratives today, I reject the work-life balance narrative. It's all one life. And if you feel like your life only starts once you stop work or once you stop thinking about work, if you want to be a lawyer, you're going to have no life, I'm afraid. It is long, long hours in the week. You sometimes have to work weekends or often have to work weekends depending on what kind of work you do. And even if you're not physically working, you're thinking about work. So if that isn't a part of your life, then you're going to have no life. And I know a lot of people who I worked with, a lot of people who I've met through LAB and various facets thereof, absolutely love their job. That is their life. And actually they don't want to do anything else other than spend 50 to 60 hours a week doing that job because they love it. And actually that's the perfect position to be, and that's exactly how you want your work to be. But if you're sat there thinking if you won the lottery tomorrow that you would do something entirely different, then it's time to do something entirely different. There's no excuse, in my opinion, in this day and age for not doing what you love. You have all of the information about all the possible opportunities out there at the touch of a keyboard. You have all the information about what's out there. You have all the information about the skills you need and how to build them. And you have the ability to connect with the people that can offer you those opportunities. If you are unhappy where you are, then use those opportunities, use that information out there to go and find where you are happy. Anyway, I've digressed quite a lot there, but the point was I wanted to create a life where I was earning money but still living my life, and I didn't feel like I had to put my life on hold in order to earn money and then only live it once I clocked off from work. And that is the life that I've created through consultancy. And I know that's not the same for everyone. I've talked about the people who I've met who genuinely love their jobs and wouldn't do anything differently. For me, because I had so many different interests, including cars, LAB, public speaking, events, all of that stuff, for me, it was necessary to change up my lifestyle and cultivate it in order to accommodate all of those things for me to create a life that I genuinely enjoyed and felt fulfilled in. So that was the point where I had to take the plunge. A lot of people talk about fear of the unknown, which keeps people in their jobs, keeps people in their comfort zone because they're afraid of what happens if they come out of it. I think for me, the fear of staying in my comfort zone was greater or became greater at the tipping point than the fear of change. And the balance tipped, I think, particularly in Dubai, where I kind of had a taste of that life of working flexibly, working in a different country, working with different people who were doing different things in different businesses, and opportunities came up that way. And for me, that was really the tipping point because I'd already come out of my comfort zone to a certain extent by moving to a whole new country. And I kind of wanted to ride that wave rather than go back into my comfort zone where I'd almost certainly stay again. So those were some of the key factors which led me to leave my job. Now, there's a lot there. There is a lot to unpack, and I'm more than happy to go into any of those in more detail and talk to you about them. So if you're interested, please leave me a comment and say what you want me to talk about. Obviously, the whole point of this channel is that it's designed by you and the content is led by you. So I want to hear from you. Just to kind of sum up, as we are coming to the end of the year, far be it from me to tell you what your 2022 goals should be. That's entirely a personal choice, entirely your own. But I think for me, I'm going to start saying no to more things which I know are not for me to allow more opportunity for the things that are for me. I'm not going to set a goal that says I have to decide exactly what the long-term goal is because that's too much and I don't know if or when I'll ever get to that stage. But I know that by saying no to, firstly, a relationship that wasn't for me right at the beginning of this process, see the previous video for that one, and then no to a job that I knew wasn't for me, even in the absence of knowing what was, so many more things that are for me have come out of that process. And I want to apply that more to kind of day-to-day things. So even if it's scrolling on social media, even if it's hanging out with people who I know don't really energize me or have got the wrong energy, or if it's spending too long online shopping or drinking or eating unhealthy, whatever it may be, things that I know are not the goal, I want to start saying no to in a more forceful way to open up the opportunities for things that are. So that is going to be one of my 2022 goals. Hopefully you have some for yourselves, albeit that I don't always abide by the whole new year, new me rule. It's never the wrong time to set new goals for yourself. But anyway, those are my goals, or that's one of my goals. Thank you so much for listening. I am going to be back on YouTube more often, but I do show up nearly every day on most of my other platforms. So please follow me on there if you want to hear more about what I'm doing. And as I said, drop in some more ideas for content, please, because I love hearing from you. Have a wonderful Christmas and New Year. Stay safe, look after the people that you love, and I will see you in 2022.